Hi, my name is Frederick. I am a 45-year-old restaurateur. Let me tell you about my pride and joy, the Flavor Sanctuary. Nestled right in the heart of the city, this place isn't just a restaurant, it's a culmination of my life's work, a canvas where I paint with flavors and aromas. When I first opened the doors to the Flavor Sanctuary, it was with a vision to offer something unique to the palate, a blend of traditional and modern cuisine that would keep patrons coming back for more. The restaurant quickly became a hub for culinary enthusiasts. On any given evening, the space buzzed with the chatter of delighted customers and the clinking of glasses, a symphony to my ears. Our success was no accident. It was the result of tireless dedication and a team that I considered family. Among them was Alexander, my head chef. His skills were unmatched, and his dishes were some of the stars of our menu. Together, we dreamed of making the Flavor Sanctuary a landmark in culinary innovation. As I walk through the restaurant, greeting familiar faces and ensuring everything is running smoothly, I can't help but feel a swell of pride. This place, with its elegant decor and ambient lighting, was designed to offer comfort and luxury. From the carefully curated artworks on the walls to the impeccably set tables, every detail was crafted to enhance the dining experience. It's here, among the laughter and the lively conversations, that I feel most at home. The Flavor Sanctuary isn't just a business to me, it's a living entity that grows and evolves. Each day brings new challenges and opportunities, but one thing remains constant, the joy of creating memorable dining experiences for our guests. Little did I know, as I closed up one evening, that the very essence of the Flavor Sanctuary was about to be challenged. Just when I thought I had the recipe for success well in hand, the winds of change began to howl outside the Flavor Sanctuary. It all started with the grand opening of Burger Blitz, a flashy new fast food joint right across the street. Their arrival was impossible to ignore. Bright lights, loud music, and the smell of sizzling burgers filled the air, drawing in crowds like moths to a flame. At first, I wasn't too concerned. After all, we catered to a different clientele, those seeking a fine dining experience. However, I couldn't help but notice the dwindling number of patrons as days passed. Tables that were once booked weeks in advance now stood empty. This was not just a minor setback, it was a direct threat to our existence. During this tumultuous time, I started noticing subtle changes within our own walls. Misplaced orders, delayed service, and a noticeable dip in the quality of our food. Something was amiss, and it didn't take long for me to pinpoint the source, Alexander. I had always trusted Alexander, not just as my head chef, but as a partner in this culinary journey. His ambition and talent were key ingredients to our success. Yet, his behavior had shifted. There were hushed phone calls, unexpected meetings, and a coldness in his interactions. It was out of character and suspicious. Determined to get to the bottom of things, I decided to confront him one evening after closing. The restaurant was quiet, the only sound being the distant hum of the city. As I approached him, I could feel my heart pounding, not wanting to believe what I was about to uncover. "Alexander, what's going on?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He hesitated, then turned to face me, his expression unreadable. After a tense moment, he confessed. Jealousy had taken root in his heart. He wanted more than just to be a chef under someone else's banner. He wanted recognition, his own name in lights, and he saw Burger Blitz's success as a blueprint for his future ambitions. I was stunned. Betrayal sliced through me sharper than any knife in our kitchen. Here was a man I had mentored and supported, plotting against the very establishment that had built his reputation. His tactics of sabotage were his way of weakening the Flavor Sanctuary, making it easier for him to leave and start his own venture. The revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. Not only did I have to contend with external competition, but now internal treachery. My vision for the restaurant, our collective efforts, all were being undermined by one of our own. As Alexander walked out that night, the weight of our conversation hung heavily in the air. I stood alone in the quiet aftermath, the challenges ahead clear. Burger Blitz might have ignited this storm, but the real battle, I realized, was going to be restoring the trust and integrity within our walls. The path wouldn't be easy, but the flavor sanctuary was my life's work, and I wasn't about to let it crumble without a fight. With Alexander's departure, a cold silence settled over the flavor sanctuary. The betrayal stung deeply, not just for me, but for the entire team who had trusted him as much as I had. Alexander's jealousy had festered into a destructive force, one that had secretly chipped away at the foundations of our establishment with every altered recipe and every staged mishap. As the days turned into weeks, the full extent of Alexander's sabotage became painfully clear. Our once impeccable reputation was tarnished. Reviews online began to reflect the drop in quality, and longtime patrons expressed their disappointment. Each complaint was a blow to my heart, a reminder of how deeply Alexander's actions had hurt us. I pored over the books late one evening, the numbers telling a story of their own. Revenue was down, significantly so, and debts were beginning to mount. Creditors became more insistent, and the stress weighed heavily on my shoulders. The vibrant atmosphere of the flavor sanctuary had dimmed, replaced by a palpable tension among the staff who feared for their jobs and the future. In my heart, I knew that drastic measures were needed to save my restaurant. The thought of selling, of giving up on my dream, loomed as a real possibility. But I wasn't ready to admit defeat. Not yet. I needed a sign, a stroke of luck, something to steer us back on course. That sign came one chilly evening, in the most unexpected form. As I was locking up for the night, I noticed a figure huddled by the back entrance. Curiosity overtook my apprehension as I approached, and there, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, was a woman with a young boy. Their eyes, wide and fearful, met mine as I knelt down to speak with them. Eleanor, the woman introduced herself timidly, clutching her son closer. "This is my son, Mac. We don't have anywhere to go." Her voice broke, the last words barely a whisper against the howling wind. Something about Eleanor's plight struck a chord in me. Perhaps it was her evident despair, or maybe it was the protective way she held Mac. It reminded me of my own reasons for building the flavor sanctuary, not just as a business, but as a sanctuary of warmth and nourishment. Here was my chance to make a difference, not just in my life, but in theirs. "Come inside," I said, more to myself than to them. "It's too cold out here for anyone to be alone." As we stepped back into the warmth of the restaurant, a plan began to form in my mind. Eleanor and Mac needed shelter and a chance to rebuild their lives. I needed trustworthy hands and fresh energy to help revive the flavor sanctuary. Perhaps together, we could find a way out of this abyss. In the weeks following Eleanor and Mac's arrival, a subtle transformation began to unfold within the walls of the flavor sanctuary. It was as if their very presence breathed a new life into our dimming embers. Eleanor, with a quiet strength and a gentle smile, quickly endeared herself to the staff and patrons alike. Mac, with his youthful energy and eagerness to help, brought a lightness that had been missing since Alexander's departure. As I watched them integrate into our daily routines, an idea began to crystallize. Maybe, just maybe, they were the missing pieces we needed. Eleanor, though initially shy, revealed a knack for culinary arts. Her homemade recipes, infused with love and a touch of nostalgia, brought a freshness to our menu that was desperately needed. Mac, on the other hand, took to the front of the house, his friendly demeanor and quick learning making him a favorite among our regulars. But despite these positive changes, the shadow of our financial struggles loomed large. Each day brought with it the heavy burden of looming debts and the fear that each service might be our last. The creditors were growing impatient, and the whispers of bankruptcy began to circulate amongst the staff. It was during one particularly hard night, as I sat poring over the accounts and seeing the numbers that didn't add up to survival, that I made the hardest decision of my life. I would have to consider selling the flavor sanctuary. The thought pained me deeply. This restaurant was more than just a business, it was a dream, a community, a family. But I had to face reality. If selling was what it took to ensure the welfare of my staff and the new family I'd found in Eleanor and Mac, then I would do it. As I wrestled with these thoughts, a knock came at my office door. It was Eleanor, her expression somber. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I nodded, steeling myself for another problem we couldn't afford. But instead of complaints or resignations, Eleanor offered something else, hope. Frederick, I've noticed how hard things have been since we came here. Mac and we can't ever repay what you've done for us, but we want to help more. Let us do more. I have some ideas to bring in more customers, to set us apart. Her words, earnest and filled with determination, took me by surprise. It was a stark contrast to the conversation I had braced myself for. Here was Eleanor, who had lost so much, still fighting, still dreaming. It reignited something within me, the fighter, the dreamer. We spent the rest of the night discussing her ideas, from themed dinner nights to local ingredient spotlights, each suggestion bringing a spark of excitement. It was a desperate decision to put so much hope in such uncertain ideas, but desperation had a funny way of breeding innovation. And so, we decided to fight. Not just for the flavor sanctuary, but for each other, for the possibility of a future that wasn't dictated by past failures. With Eleanor and Mac by my side, I felt the weight of isolation lift. We were in this together, come what may. The weeks following our late-night strategy session marked a pivotal shift at the flavor sanctuary. Eleanor's ideas, infused with her passion and Mac's tireless enthusiasm, began to take shape, transforming our establishment in ways I hadn't imagined possible. Eleanor introduced family feast nights, where she would prepare special family-style meals that evoked a sense of home and community. The events were an instant hit, drawing in families and large groups, eager to experience the warmth and camaraderie that Eleanor's cooking inspired. Her dishes, simple yet bursting with flavor, spoke of her journey and the resilience embedded in each recipe. Mac, with his bright smile and infectious energy, became the face of our front of house. He greeted every guest with such genuine warmth that it was impossible not to feel immediately welcomed. Under his watch, the service transformed into an experience that was both personal and heartfelt. But it wasn't just their efforts inside the kitchen and the dining room that made a difference. Eleanor and Mac reached out to the local community, inviting local artists to display their work on our walls and local musicians to perform during dinner hours. The Flavor Sanctuary was becoming a cultural hub, rekindling the spirit of the neighborhood along with its own fortunes. The impact was palpable. Each night, as I watched our dining room fill with laughter and our staff move with renewed purpose, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The dark cloud of debt and despair that had loomed over us was starting to lift, replaced by a buzz of excitement and possibility. Our reviews began to improve, with patrons praising not just the food and service, but the atmosphere and community focus. Word of mouth spread, and soon, we were seeing not just our old regulars return, but new faces, curious to experience the revitalized Flavor Sanctuary. One evening, as I was closing up, Eleanor approached me with a shy smile. "Frederick, I've been thinking," she began, hesitating slightly. "What about starting a culinary training program here? For people who are where I was, struggling, out of hope. We could give them a place to learn, to grow." Her proposal struck a chord with me. The Flavor Sanctuary had given Eleanor and Mac a new start, and now it could do the same for others. It was an idea that went beyond business. It was about legacy, about using our success to uplift others. "Yes," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Let's do it. Let's give back, not just to the community, but to anyone who needs a new beginning." As we planned this new venture, I realized that Eleanor and Mac were no longer just employees or even friends. They were my partners in this journey. Together, we were building something far greater than I had ever envisioned when I first opened the doors of the Flavor Sanctuary. We were building hope, a future not just for ourselves, but for anyone who needed it. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what came our way, we were ready to face it, together. As the Flavor Sanctuary began to flourish anew, I found myself reflecting on the bonds that had carried us through the storm. Eleanor, Mac, and I had formed a partnership that went beyond the daily operations of a restaurant. It was a deep, personal connection rooted in shared struggles and mutual support. One quiet afternoon, Eleanor and I sat down in the now vibrant dining room, the soft hum of preparation for the evening service in the background. We often took these moments to plan and reflect, but today, our conversation took a more personal turn. Eleanor, I've never really asked, I began, curiosity nudging me, what brought you to that doorstep the night I found you and Mac? Eleanor paused, her eyes distant as she gathered her thoughts. It's a long story, Frederick, one filled with mistakes and missteps, she said softly. My husband left us with nothing but debts and empty promises. I tried to keep everything together, but everything just fell apart. When we lost our home, I thought all was lost. That night, when you found us, I was at the end of my rope. Her voice trembled slightly, but she smiled, a testament to her resilience. But then you offered us a chance, a new beginning. It's more than I could have ever hoped for. As she spoke, I felt a profound respect for Eleanor. Her strength and determination to rebuild her life were inspiring. It was her resilience that had helped turn the Flavor Sanctuary around, and in many ways, she had done the same for me. Your strength is what has helped us all, Eleanor. You've brought new life to the Flavor Sanctuary, and to me, I admitted, feeling a bond that went beyond mere gratitude. We continued talking, sharing more about our pasts, our losses, and our dreams. It was during these conversations that I realized how much Eleanor had come to mean to me, not just as a partner in business, but as a dear friend. Our shared experiences of hardship had forged a connection that was rare and precious. The rest of the team felt it too. The restaurant no longer functioned just as a place of business, but as a community where everyone was valued and supported. This spirit was palpable to our customers as well, who often commented on the warm, inviting atmosphere. The idea of the culinary training program for those in need began to take shape with great enthusiasm from everyone involved. We reached out to local organizations to partner with us, providing not just training but also support and mentor in all aspects of the hospitality industry. As I watched Eleanor instruct a group of eager newcomers, her patience and passion evident, I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. The Flavor Sanctuary was no longer just surviving, it was thriving, a beacon of hope and opportunity. And as we built this new chapter together, the bonds between us all grew stronger, a testament to the power of resilience and the human spirit. In that bustling kitchen and lively dining room, I found not just a renewed business but a family. Together, we were not just rebuilding a restaurant, we were creating a legacy of hope and transformation. Just when it seemed like the skies over the Flavor Sanctuary were clear, a storm from the past rolled in. It arrived in the form of Philip, Eleanor's ex-husband, who had heard through the grapevine of our recent successes and evidently decided he wanted a piece of the pie. It was a busy evening when Philip first made his appearance, striding into the restaurant with an air of entitlement that didn't sit well with anyone. His sudden arrival caught Eleanor off guard, and I could see the color drain from her face as she recognized him. Frederick, can we talk in private? Philip asked curtly, not even a minute into his uninvited visit. The tone of his voice, commanding and presumptuous, irked me, but I agreed, curious about his intentions and concerned about Eleanor. Once we were away from the curious ears of our patrons and staff, Philip wasted no time. I see Eleanor has been doing well for herself here, he began, his eyes scanning the bustling dining area. I'm here to offer a deal. I want a share of this resurgence. After all, I'm sure Eleanor wouldn't have made it this far without the skills she developed during our marriage. The audacity of his claim was staggering. Eleanor had built her strength not because of him, but in spite of him and his abandonment. I clenched my fists, feeling a protective rage building inside me. Philip, I said, keeping my voice calm, your relationship with Eleanor and whatever transpired between you two is none of my business. But here, at the Flavor Sanctuary, we value hard work and dedication, qualities that Eleanor has in abundance and that you seem to lack. Philip's face tightened, his eyes narrowing. Think about it, Frederick. I have connections that could help expand this little project of yours. Refusing my offer might not be in your best interests. I stood firm, unflinching. The Flavor Sanctuary is doing just fine with the genuine connections and community we've built. We're not interested in your kind of help. With a scoff, Philip turned to leave, his parting words a thinly veiled threat. This isn't over, Frederick. After he left, I immediately went to find Eleanor. She was in the kitchen, her hand shaking slightly as she plated a dish. When I told her about the conversation, she sighed deeply, a mixture of fear and frustration in her eyes. I knew he wouldn't just let me be, she murmured. Eleanor, we're in this together, I reassured her. You, me, Mac, and everyone else here. We stand by each other. Philip can't touch what we've built here. In the days that followed, I doubled down on my commitment to protect the Flavor Sanctuary and its newfound family. Legal protections were put in place, and the local community rallied around us, their support a strong shield against any external threats. As the dust settled after Philip's unwelcome visit, the spirit within the Flavor Sanctuary only grew stronger. Eleanor's resolve, in particular, seemed to harden against the challenges, transforming her into not just a beacon of hope for our team but a pillar of creative and culinary strength. The grand reopening of the Flavor Sanctuary was a resounding success, but the night held more significance for me than just the triumph of our business. Amidst the hustle and excitement, a deeper, personal revelation unfolded, one that would reshape the future of both the restaurant and my life. As the evening wound down, with guests expressing their heartfelt congratulations and the last of the dishes being cleared away, Eleanor and I found a quiet corner to reflect on the journey that had brought us here. The soft glow of the overhead lights and the gentle hum of the departing crowd created a serene backdrop for a moment I had been anticipating all night. Eleanor, I started, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. Tonight was incredible, not just because of the success we've achieved, but because of what you've brought to the Flavor Sanctuary and to my life. Eleanor looked at me, her eyes reflecting the soft light, a gentle smile playing on her lips. Frederick, I can't express enough how much this all means to Mac and me. You gave us a home when we had none, a purpose when we were lost. I took a deep breath, the weight of my next words settling in my chest. That's just it, Eleanor. You and Mac are more than just part of the Flavor Sanctuary. You've become part of my life, a very important part. And I paused, searching for the right words. I've come to realize how much I admire you, not just for your strength and talent, but for the incredible person you are. I love you, Eleanor. The air between us seemed to still, the bustle around fading into a hushed silence. Eleanor's eyes widened slightly, unspoken emotions flickering across her face before she responded. Frederick, I didn't expect this. I have so much respect and care for you, too. You've changed our lives. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I can't imagine it without you. Her words, honest and sincere, filled me with a hope and joy I hadn't dared to fully embrace until now. I reached for her hands, holding them between mine. Then let's figure out the future together, I said, my voice steady despite the racing of my heart. Eleanor, would you think about marrying me? Tears glistened in Eleanor's eyes as she nodded, her voice a soft whisper. Yes, Frederick, I would love that. The world seemed to pause around us, the significance of our words enveloping us in a bubble of shared dreams and possibilities. We stood there, hands clasped, hearts aligned, surrounded by the very essence of the Flavor Sanctuary, not just a place of culinary delights, but a foundation for our newly joined paths. That night, as we walked through the restaurant, checking on the staff and sharing quiet conversations, the future seemed bright and filled with endless potential. Together, Eleanor and I would not only run the Flavor Sanctuary, but build a life filled with love, respect, and shared goals. The challenges we had faced seemed smaller now, overshadowed by the promise of what lay ahead. We were ready to start this new chapter together, filled with love and the unbreakable bonds we had formed.